Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping straight into the story of what's been called the awkward idea that broke the ice.
Yeah, it's a great one. We're drawing on material from a source called My Dumbest Success.
Which is a fantastic series. It's all about celebrating these ridiculous, completely unlikely ideas that somehow turn into something really meaningful.
Exactly. And our mission today is to go beyond just the inspiration. We want to pull out the practical wisdom,
The actual steps.
the actual steps, the coping mechanisms. How do people overcome that initial wave of doubt and criticism? We're looking for actionable courage, not just a feel-good story.
Absolutely. And our focus for this deep dive is the journey of Jordan Evans, an entrepreneur who took their own deep-seated, really painful social awkwardness
Mhm.
and turned it into a wildly successful party game.
And that's the core tension.
Yeah.
Right. The paradox we need to unpack is how a game designed to increase social awkwardness with these bizarre, challenging questions. How did that become a tool for connection? For, ironically, reducing social anxiety. That's the path we want to follow, from a laughable idea to a genuinely valuable product.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, at the genesis of this. Jordan's starting point is, I think, super relatable.
It's very.
Always feeling like the awkward one at parties. That feeling of dreading the small talk.
That forced, meaningless chit-chat.
Yeah, just wanting to bypass the talk about the weather and get to something real, even if it's ridiculous.
And that aversion to fake connection, that's really the engine here. Jordan's success is proof that millions of people feel the same way. Small talk isn't just boring, it can be, well, mentally draining.
So the source material says the aha moment wasn't some big business plan, it was just personal frustration.
Born out of pain, really.
Yes. After what Jordan called a particularly cringy party, they went home and just started writing down the most ridiculous icebreaker questions they could think of, purely to make themselves laugh.
Which is such a classic creative move, right? Turning that internal frustration into an outlet. The key thing is that it started as a joke. It was a way to process social pain.
They weren't asking, how do I build a company?
No, they were asking, how do I make this awful situation just a little less miserable for myself?
And then came the leap, the first test. Jordan takes this list of questions to parties and, dares friends to answer them. And the feedback loop starts right there.
What was the reaction?
Friends thought it was hilarious. They were laughing, but they also kept saying, this is so fun, but also it's so dumb.
And that absurdity is so important psychologically because the questions were so over the top. I mean, asking about your preferred method for battling a badger in zero gravity or something like
It
that.
just lowers the stakes for everyone.
Totally lowers the stakes. If you give a bad answer, who cares? It's not embarrassing. It's just funny. The absurdity creates this blanket of psychological safety.
It's cover. It gives you permission to be weird without being judged because the game itself is telling you to be weird.
Precisely. And this really connects to the bigger picture. Personal quirks, especially vulnerabilities like awkwardness, they can become your greatest strengths when they're channeled the right way.
The feature, not the bug.
Exactly. But we can't forget that initial internal resistance. Jordan admitted feeling genuinely silly asking that question. Who in the world would pay money for a game about choosing to be awkward?
And that feeling that you're creating something inherently embarrassing, that's such a huge hurdle to overcome.
It is. And that's when the idea had to leave the safety of, friendly living rooms and face the real world.
Okay, so let's unpack that resistance because it wasn't just in Jordan's head. The external criticism was pretty pointed.
Family didn't get it.
Family didn't get it. They were supportive but confused. And then friends, even the ones who laughed, were warning them, saying, no one wants to feel more awkward at parties.
Which is a fundamental challenge to the entire concept. I mean, that raises a critical question for anyone listening. How do you keep going when people tell you that the need you think you're solving is actually something people actively try to avoid?
And the rejections just kept coming. So setback number one was the first physical prototype. Jordan prints up cards, takes them to test groups, and it just flops.
A total flop.
Yeah, the source describes people just staring at the cards, confused, not sure what to do. It just created this long, painful silence.
Oof.
Jordan said they felt like they were making a public joke of themselves. It was visceral.
And that's the moment right there where I think 90% of entrepreneurs would just quit. The self-consciousness is too much.
But the flop was data.
It was vital data. It showed the problem wasn't the questions. The content was fine. The problem was the delivery. The mechanism was broken.
So what was the practical fix? How did they change the delivery?
They realized that silence was the enemy. The game was too passive. So Jordan spent weeks reworking the instructions, adding simple mechanics to force participation.
Like
For example, a rule where if you stalled for more than, say, 5 seconds, you had to pass the card, but you also had to do a short, silly action.
a chicken dance or
A
something.
chicken dance, a dramatic cough, anything to just keep the energy moving and break the tension.
Ah, so you codify the failure. The awkward silence becomes part of the game, a consequence that guarantees a laugh instead of, just cringing.
Exactly. That pivot is brilliant. It turns the bug the pause into a feature, which is mandated absurdity.
But even with a better prototype, the failures didn't stop.
Not at all. They just shifted from concept failure to, well, public and financial failure.
The Kickstarter.
Jordan launched a full Kickstarter campaign, and it failed. Just spectacularly. Alphod Money suffered the very public humiliation of not hitting their goal. For most niche ideas, that's the end of the line.
And then it gets worse. Setback number 3, market rejection. Jordan goes to local game shops, try and find retail partners.
And let me guess,
The feedback was always the same. It's too niche. This won't move off the shelves. This was a sustained, compounding assault on the whole idea.
so just think about the level of persistence required here. You have an idea that fails with the prototype, it fails financially with the Kickstarter, and it fails commercially with retailers. How do you not give up?
What drove that resilience? Because it clearly wasn't coming from the outside. There's zero external validation.
It was the internal validation. It came from those small, trusted groups. Jordan spent countless nights just tweaking the questions, refining the rules, driven by one thing, the joy and the authentic laughter they saw when the game worked.
For those small circles.
Of those small circles, yes. The core belief was, if it works for them, for people like me, it has to work for others. They held on to that feeling, even when the market rejected the delivery mechanism.
So it wasn't just blind persistence. It was persistence guided by that microfeedback, constantly refining the delivery.
Exactly. They learned the market wasn't rejecting the need for better connection. They were just rejecting the presentation of the solution. And once that was refined, well, the stage was set for a pretty surreal turning point.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Because after all that grinding, all that internal persistence, the breakthrough was completely external.
And largely out of their control.
Totally. It was validation from a place they never expected. A popular YouTube channel, one that specializes in party games, got a hold of the refined game.
The one that failed on Kickstarter.
That exact one. They played it on their stream and it went viral overnight.
Wow.
Suddenly, the same stores that called it too niche were calling Jordan, desperate to get it in stock. Jordan was just shocked that this dumb idea was making people laugh all over the world.
That kind of viral shift, it must feel completely surreal after hitting such deep lows.
Yeah, Jordan described wanting to quit so many times, which made the success feel almost unbelievable. Like it was just a stroke of luck that happened to validate years of quiet, meticulous work.
But the success wasn't just about the sales figures, which I think is the real emotional breakthrough here.
This is the so what of the story.
It is. The true measure was the emotional impact, which completely flipped that initial criticism on its head, the one about people not wanting to feel awkward.
Right.
Jordan started getting these really specific, profound messages from people who bought the game. People writing in to say it helped them make friends in a new city or feel less anxious at work events.
Just think about that for a second. The framework was built to maximize discomfort, but that same framework ended up minimizing the fear of connection.
The shared silly discomfort became the antidote to that paralyzing social anxiety. It proves that sometimes the only way to get over a fear of failure is to create a space where failure, in this case being awkward, is the funny expected outcome.
It made awkwardness safe.
It made it safe. And once that emotional validation was there, the business growth just followed.
Expanding the game, new question packs, major retailers.
Invites to conventions. It went from a personal joke to a staple party game. All because the core mechanism, sharing something ridiculous, filled this universal, unmet need for authenticity.
So let's transition to the practical takeaways for you, the listener. If you have your own crazy idea on a shelf somewhere, what's the advice from Jordan?
The first piece of advice is just central to this whole story. Embrace your personal quirks. Jordan's social difficulty became their business model.
Your vulnerability is your strength.
It can be your most powerful entrepreneurial strength.
Yeah.
And second, Jordan stressed not being afraid to be different or to make people laugh, even if it feels awkward at first. That initial discomfort from the prototype flop, that wasn't a reason to quit, it was just data.
The ultimate lesson here seems to be that the awkwardness didn't need to be fixed or eliminated.
No, it needed to be structured. It needed to be channeled into a shared experience. Jordan's success really shows that sometimes the dumbest ideas are the ones that change the world. But only if you have the discipline to refine the delivery through all those failures.
So we've tracked this whole journey from a joke born out of that corner standing dread through all these failures, conceptual, financial, market failures, all the way to a global party staple.
It's proof that playing with dumb ideas can really break the ice.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. What embarrassing or ridiculous idea have you shelved because of self-doubt or because someone else told you it wouldn't work?
Maybe the idea isn't the problem at all. Maybe it's just the presentation.
And building on Jordan's journey of constantly reworking the rules after the prototype flopped and the Kickstarter failed, you should consider this. If you're hitting resistance, is it because the market doesn't understand the need you're addressing, or is it just the delivery mechanism?
And one last thing. If a popular YouTube channel was the thing that finally validated Jordan's game, this external platform that amplified their niche idea, what existing channels or niche communities or advocates might be out there right now, just waiting to validate your too niche idea? Sometimes success is just about finding the right stage to present your perfected delivery.